Being an active player means you need things to do. But after you run out of your own initial projects, it's time for the government to help provide interesting projects for its citizens. So in this episode, I'll show you some laws that incentivize player activity by leveraging housing bonuses, selling items from stores, buying items from stores, and eating good food. I should mention from the beginning that most of these government incentive programs are being applied to Atlantis, an underground living and commerce space created through a series of contracts. But you can translate these fundamental laws to other things that you want to incentivize or offer as gameplay options. Even though I performed a fair bit of the Atlantis labor myself, a big part of it was created by the citizens through contracts. You can watch prior videos in this series to see all that. But in terms of economic health, the building of Atlantis space provided a nice, natural way for money to be injected into the economy and consumed tens of thousands of stone and other materials, which is before any of the building I'm going to talk about right here. The first thing I'm going to talk about is how to leverage the housing bonus. With the inclusion of residency an update or so ago, the law system got some new values that can be used for a variety of things. I used the overall skill points you get from housing to create an incentive, and perhaps, even more importantly, give the citizens some goals and objectives, something fun to do, and as you'll see, even offer some gameplay strategies the players can tinker with. The law is triggered off a citizen timer, so it can be automatically triggered and provide a payout every day. I get a lot of questions about citizen timers versus global timers. In short, if you want your law to be enacted and do something associated with each citizen on some sort of schedule, you want the citizen timer. The global timer is when you still want something to happen at regular intervals, but it's not associated with the citizens. For my purposes, I wanted there to be a payout based on the housing bonus, and give that payout to each citizen. The payout happens for a residency built in Atlantis. Now, you can build anything in Atlantis, but to get the payout, it must be selected as your residency, because in the game, only a single place can be designated as your residency, and that's the place where you get your housing skill bonus. The law is simple. The person is paid so many coins for each point of housing bonus. So the higher the tier of material used, the higher the bonus. The more furnishings and finishing touches added, the higher the bonus. Most of the properties are of the same size, which is a 4-claim square. Not a ton of room, but adequate for at least a 3-story tall building to fit within the ceiling space of Atlantis, which is 13 blocks high. There are 3 properties, 5 or 6 claims big, and 3 that are only 2 claims big, so there is some variation. But with that also comes some strategy and potential collaboration forming among players. The properties are like row houses, so an individual could work with their neighbor to share an adjoining wall and reclaim an extra block of space down the length of their property. There's also some strategy in the purchase. To keep it fair between long-term server players and folks joining more recently, a new currency was introduced that is only used to purchase these new properties. Only 20 of this new Agrar Kelp currency can be earned each day by every citizen, giving everyone a fair chance. But what will citizens choose? Will they assure themselves a spot in Atlantis and grab a 2 or 4 claim plot early? Or wait a few more days, build up more of this special coin currency, and try to be the first to acquire the more rare and larger properties? It's hard to say what folks will do. ECO and its citizens always surprise me, so we'll just have to see. The second option a person has for building in this underwater Atlantis area is to make a store. Store purchases get a rebate, provided from the government treasury on products in a few different ways. Citizens buying items in Atlantis get a 5% rebate on the purchase price for anything bought. shop owners in Atlantis get a 5% rebate on any materials they sell through their stores. So both the store owner and person shopping gets a benefit. This encourages folks to have stores in Atlantis, and due to the close proximity of stores, it's a prime location for transport opportunities, where even a new player with only a cart can quickly move goods from one store to the other, getting not only the profits from the actual movement of goods, but also the government kickback. I think it's always good to be introducing things that help new players on a long-term server, and little cycles like these can really help a lot. But the Atlantis incentives don't stop with housing and store rebates. Just owning a plot of land in Atlantis gives a daily kickback from the government. That kickback compounds on top of any incentives for residency or shop interactions. What's interesting there is that a player doesn't even have to participate in movement of their residency or running a shop in Atlantis. If they wanted, they could just build a small decorative park with benches, fountains, statuary, or anything else that just creates a nice aesthetic. And it makes sense. A park is a rather passive build, and so that would trickle in some money, but in a smaller amount than the more actively running of a store. With that residency kickback I started with, there's now some strategies coming in for players. Do you want to get the store rebate bonus? Do you feel it more advantageous to build a nice residency and get that bonus? With the residency bonus, any kickback gets split between all the people that share the residence. So does that make turning your Atlantis property into a bed and breakfast much more attractive as a rental property? And what if you're a new player looking for a place to rent? That kickback might fully cover any rent that would be levied. An Atlantis property owner might try to be really efficient and run a store on the ground floor and still be able to create a high skill point residency for rental on the top couple floors. It just all depends. There's a lot of possible strategies the citizens might apply. Even though they are only able to own one property in Atlantis, it doesn't mean that an entrepreneurial person couldn't buy one, create a beautiful and rebate advantageous building of some sort, and then sell it to another player at whatever the market will bear, and then try to purchase a second property, assuming there are still any for sale. But I will say this, the Atlantis area is not the only one mapped out and being worked for future expansion. Long-term servers are good for that. The last incentive has to do with food. Now, it would be great if the game currently had the ability to examine food that's eaten, either as it's consumed or even as a total of your stomach content skill points. What you could do with that is you could encourage eating higher tier food, or even set a food skill point threshold that must be held to craft certain high tier items. All sorts of things like that. But we don't have that in the game. I've heard rumor that the devs are running something like that on their White Tiger developer-run server, but I haven't seen it. It is encouraging, though, to hear that rumor, as it would be a great addition to the law system. What can be, and was done right now, is incentivize buying top-tier foods. A big 40% government rebate was applied to all Tier 4 foods anywhere in the world. Because the top-tier foods use the most raw food for production, this helps a chain of everyone, leading all the way back to the farmer and gatherer, and shouldn't leave out just the regular cooks and bakers, as many of their products are feeder ingredients into those top-tier foods. It's hard to know if this will truly incentivize the eating of those top foods, but it certainly makes them much more attractive to many people who have already maxed out their acquirable skill points and are only looking for the cheapest calorie food they can get to power their tables for production. A lot more cheap top-tier food might be bought, but we'll see. And hey, if you buy that top-tier food in Atlantis, you get another 5% rebate on top of that. And I'm sure new players will appreciate having better access to those higher-tier foods. For top-tier food purchases, an additional 10% gets routed to a second city that has sprung up and become well-developed in Dadville. It's Ironvale. It can be hard to get a second city to be self-funding, but perhaps this fund transfer based on food purchases will be a little self-perpetuating without manual transfers of funding. It just feels better anyway. So, having Atlantis property or any location you might want to promote can be incentivized. And I'm not saying that worldwide flooding is on its way to this server, but I'm not saying it either. Take care, and I'll be talking to you later.